My guest today is Ramona Gonzales. Ramona has been in digital media for over 30 years. She has worked in small startups like Wrapped and in large corporations like Microsoft. More recently, she has consulted to industry trade groups like the IAB and the DAA. We're going to be talking today about her journey through the advertising space and focus on lessons learned that people just starting out can learn from her experience. Ramona, I am so glad that you're able to join me today.
Hi, James. I'm so happy to be with you. I love your series. It's been really, really informational, but also very entertaining.
Excellent. Well, thank you for the kind words. Ramona, you and I met over 15 years ago when we were both at Wrapped and then at Microsoft together. But you started in the media industry way before that. Tell me, how did you get into the industry? And then how did you go from that to being the founding editor of Latina magazine? What prompted that project?
Well, let me take a step back. So I have a degree in journalism, concentration in magazine editing, and a minor in women's studies. So my first job out of college was Parenting Magazine. I was very lucky because there's only at the time, two national magazines in San Francisco, the other one being Mother Jones. And then of course, down in the Bay, Sunset Magazine, that all those wonderful home and garden magazines. So I was very lucky. I started there as an editorial assistant. I began my first few weeks there faxing. Yes, that was before email. We did get email at some point, but faxing documents to Dr. Benjamin Spock's wife, Mary Morgan. He became a contributor to the magazine shortly before I joined Parenting Magazine. And so I met Dr. Benjamin Spock, who was, helped my mother raise me and many other millions of children. It was pretty wonderful. And I also was the toy editor there. So I went to New York City every year for Toy Fair. And it was such a wonderful experience, the caliber of excellence, and the highest of standards, the pure talent and generosity of spirit taught me everything I needed to move to New York City and launch Latina magazine. So I was with Parenting for 4 years and got a couple promotions in between, during those 4 years. And then, got the job at Latina magazine. I went to New York City. I interviewed at many different magazines, but Christy Haberger contacted me after Marcia Gillespie, the editor-in-chief of Ms. Magazine, who had met me the year previously, or maybe that very year, 1995, and recommended me. And so that's how I met Christy Haberger, who was the publisher of Latina, and moved my life from San Francisco to New York City, and was the first managing editor, which is basically the number 2. There was no executive editor. And I like I said, I had the best training from Parenting Magazine to what I think of as my first startup, really. We did our first issue out of Essence Magazine's offices in Times Square. J-Lo was our first cover. That was when she did the Selena movie. And I actually became really close friends with Tony Duran, who was the photographer who did all of the photo shoots, beauty, fashion, down in Miami. We all went down to Miami for the first issue. He did not shoot Jennifer Lopez for that cover, but he ended up becoming one of her main photographer of choice for many, 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 many years. So he would call me on the phone, come over, I don't know what to do with all this. And he would just have all this, all the outtakes from like the last shoot that she did. And he's like, I don't know what to do with all this. And so I'd go over there and calm him down and, help him edit whatever shoot he was doing with her. And I actually met her longtime manager, Benny Medina, who's actually a very nice man. So, but yeah, I wore and juggled many hats, and I loved every minute of it. It was, I literally woke up and it was like, couldn't wait to get to work.
We'll get in a minute to the question of, how to think about managing your career later in your career. But if you cast your mind back to that stage when you were just starting out, if you had advice for either your younger self or for someone who's now coming out of a journalism program and just starting out, what would that advice be, or what are the key sort of lessons learned from your career?
Always think bigger, right? Like when I was in J school, my goal was to be an editor at Vogue magazine. Now, that was my younger self, a little shallow perhaps, but that was my aim. And it was very narrowly fixed. I think that I pivoted pretty quickly and well after Latina, but I really thought of magazines as being the be all end all, right? And it's great to be passionate about what you went to college for, right? But just keep an open mind that you may not be doing what you set out to do even 5 years later, much less 20 years later. I think personally, if my younger self could go back and talk to my older self, go back to talk to my younger self, I would say consider a career in public office.
Oh, interesting. And why public office?
Over the past 3 decades, I'm a political junkie, but I was also raised in a very heavily Democratic house with very uh, social ideas in terms of making sure that your fellow man has the same opportunities as you do. My father was the first of 7 sons, the only one who went to college, got his master's. Both my parents were teachers. So it was a very academic household, very political in the sense of, social programs like Social Security and Affordable Care Act. Like all of those things were a big part of um, the way I was raised, right? Colorblind, right? No racism, emphasis on cultural things and languages and music and museums. So when I see what's happening now, it makes my head explode. And I feel that I didn't know at the time, say when I was 18 or 26, that a lot of the skill sets that I now have would be perfect for. I don't want to be a politician. I just want to be a lawmaker. I just want to legislate.
So let's bridge on that and maybe not get into the broader political.
No.
Staying within media and particularly digital media, it's no secret that Latinas and Latinos are underrepresented in digital media. At times, I imagine it must be lonely. I know there are networks within the broader digital media space that sort of help support each other within the Latino and Latino community. How do you think about your role within that community? And what advice do you have for people who maybe have English as their second language, maybe they're native Spanish speakers, how to, frankly, build a successful career within digital media?
Well, if you're a Latino, Hispanic, Spanish language speaking person, you have way more opportunities than you did before because first of all, Latinos, Hispanics, however you want to designate them, we are the largest growing population. Spanish language is the second language of the United States. And we, as a group, watch more streaming video. We're on our devices. We are basically more apt to, because again, a lot of Hispanic families, you have a lot of different generations living in the same household. So they're streaming, they're doing this, they're doing that. But yet we still have a dearth of Latino actors, producers, just basically shows that are on mainstream that show the American Hispanic life. Of course, there's exceptions for sure, but that's sort of where the dearth is happening. But it's absolutely getting better. I think that having spent most of my career in New York City, there's this built-in diversity, right? So I kind of go into situations completely colorblind. I don't clock who's white, who's Indian, who's African American. I do clock every once in a while the ratio between men and women in a conference room, because I've spent most of my careers being 1 of 10 or 2 of 15. But again, I didn't really clock it that much because I walked into that room to do a job with really exceptional people, and we had problems to solve, and that's what I was focused on mainly. I never experienced racism in the job, which was I guess I was lucky.
Yeah. But what resources are available for the Latino community in terms of either online resources, networking resources? I've got to assume that there are materials and resources available.
I'm sure there is, but again, I would recommend not for people who are Hispanic and Latino, just get in with like-minded people, right? Again, you don't have to be in an environment that's all brown people, right? Because we're different. There's Dominican Republicans, Dominican, there's Puerto Ricans, there's Cubanos, Mexicans, Spaniards, Central Americans. So we are a very diverse group of people that cannot be just placed in one silo. So forget about your skin color. Just be with like-minded people who you feel comfortable with, who can support you and inspire you, keep you accountable, and just, I mean, isn't that what we all want to eventually get to, where we do not think about how many Black people are in the room, or Hispanic people in the room, or Asian people in the room? So make your heritage less about yourself when you're in a professional environment, right? Your perspective is a plus. You're bringing that with you already, right? And that's where you can let your perspective shine.
Brilliant.
I think we have to move away from, because it gets us in trouble, right? Now DEI is like, it's being used against us. So it's
Talk
not
me
just that it's
about
not complicated. It's certainly definitely still complicated.
talk to me about the swing in DEI. You and I had a conversation a few weeks ago where we talked about how, partly because of the changing political and climate, part of it's just a natural swings of pendulums. There was a lot of emphasis around DEI. It seems to have taken a little bit of a backseat recently. Is that your experience?
I think it's taken a back seat because it's been forced to take a back seat. I mean, just this morning listening to the news, the Republicans are now slamming Kamala Harris as a DEI hire, right? And that does not give any credence to her massive capabilities and professional successes as a prosecutor and as the vice president. So they're trying to minimize her by making DEI a negative thing.
Okay. I spoke to Angie Ng a few months ago, and we get a lot of good feedback about her sort of tips and tricks for
Yes.
running a job search and managing your career. Uh, Similar question to you as you sort of think about later stage career, well, actually, for really anybody who might be listening to this, the world continues to evolve, particularly for those of us who are in media and in tech. And what we have to do to be successful in our careers also changes almost day to day. As you think about, what people should be doing to manage their career, what are those top sort of 2 or 3 things that spring to mind for you?
Well, it's funny that you say that because I'm actually in the middle of a job search. And I can tell you that it is absolutely frustrating, anxiety provoking, depressing, and demoralizing. And this is from someone who's had a great career so far. I've been consulting, for almost 15 years now. I've had great projects. Um, my love of consulting actually came from my time working with James in advisory services that he launched pretty much a couple days before I joined the company. Funny story. I joined the company, flew out to San Francisco on a Thursday, met James. James said, "Can you do an hour presentation tomorrow during lunch over pizza for the company? Because you're the only person who's come from a publisher before. Can you do like digital publishing 101 tomorrow?"
Well, you know that I have no fear about either throwing myself into that situation or apparently throwing anyone else into that
Right. I
situation.
was like,
And
okay.
as I recall, things worked out pretty well
Oh,
in
it
that.
was great. I still have that deck. It was
Brilliant.
fantastic. I was like, okay, it was 5 o'clock. I'm like, I guess I'm going back to my hotel room and doing this deck. No, it was great. It was the perfect way to start my time at Wrapped. But yeah, so James and I went out, and he had just started advisory services at Wrapped, and we did some great projects with Shutterfly, starting their first advertising operations, and we went all around the country. I think for Cox, we did 5 cities in 5 days. That was insane. Anyway, let me go back to the question. Yes. So after 15 years of consulting, I'm considering going back into one company role. And it's been rough. And I think it's been rough for many different reasons. But one of the reasons why it's been rough is because my work experience is so diverse. I started off as a journalist, then a content person, then a technologist, then a publisher, and I've done a whole bunch of stuff in between. And then my industry or digital industry organization work in terms of spearheading and managing a whole bunch of working groups and task forces and advisory boards for the IAB and the IAB Tech Lab, which I joined at the very outset and ran with Steve Sullivan. And that was also an amazing, amazing experience. But back to the job hunt, I found this great program called Never Sit Alone. It's a free support group of peer job seekers who meet on a weekly basis to help each other find the next job that they will love. And it's because having peers can really make all the difference in not feeling alone and navigating what is a very emotional ride of a job search. Um, Searching for a new job, one that you'll love, is frustrating, like I said, and anxiety provoking. But when you support and are supported by other super highly accomplished people like yourself, it's a completely different experience. The negative is replaced with the positive. You've got hope, you have motivation, you have accountability. And yeah, I mean, I've just been, I'm the moderator of my job search council, which is where you do all the work. You know, first you join a job search council, you get to know each other, and then you really start working on through a series of different exercises. You work on your market candidate fit, which is thinking of that you're the product, right? And how do you fit in as a product in the marketplace? And so that's called creating your market candidate fit, which frankly, that's the one area that I'm having a little bit of trouble with because I'm such a generalist, but a specialist. I love doing a lot of different things and working in a lot of different areas and working with a lot of different people and departments and doing different things. Like when I was with Wrapped, I was working with James. I was doing product development with the product development team, and I was a sales engineer and doing demos of all of our super complex solutions and tools. Yep. So that was amazing. I love that. So it's hard as someone who likes to do a lot of things to do a candidate market fit statement that has to be one sentence and super, super customized. So struggling. But
I guess one question is different people have very different approaches. You and I both know people who've sort of gone about it. They say they're doing a listening tour, and they'll go out and basically have 50 or 100 cups of coffee with different people, really just to sort of find out what's out there. Other people tend to have a very structured approach in terms of, you know, it sounds like, you know, creating profile of how you fit with particular roles and then proceeding to go to apply for those types of roles. How do you think about the range of different ways in which someone can go about a job search?
Well, what I love about this Never Search Alone process is that, yes, one of the main steps or stages or phases is embarking on a listening tour, like our friend Andrew Kraft is. The listening tours are supposed to help you get closer to your job candidate market fit. But I like that you brought up the fact that there's different ways to approach, even within this, what I call a program, right? And as moderator, and I attend the biweekly moderator Zoom calls, and I told myself from the very beginning, it's like, we don't have to do things exactly like the book says, right? We take what is valuable for us, and then we use that as a launch pad to get through all the different phases and steps that we all agree are valid and helpful. But we're nowhere near like the timeline that has been prescribed, right? Within the book, like within 10 days, 10 weeks, you're supposed to have your listening tour done. And we're on 4 months, right? So, but, and again, we've had some members leave and new members come, and it's summer. So, but yes, it's great to think of the way that the program helps you think about yourself. And then when you're with these other people, you get so much insight into yourself and how you could fit into the marketplace that you hadn't even thought of before. And that's really valuable above and beyond just being there for each other. Listening to the frustrations of being ghosted, by a recruiter who seemed really interested in putting you together with a hiring manager. And then, you show up for, like, this literally happened with my council last week, where someone literally showed up in person for an interview and got ghosted, and then finally got a hold of the person he was supposed to be interviewing with 10 minutes after. And the guy was like, no, I want the full hour, even though there was 50 minutes left, and it was his fault. So those are the kind of things that you can bring, to a call and just spend 5 minutes just venting. And and you leave the call feeling better about what happened and feeling more invigorated, and hey, that's that, and I'm just going to move forward. So those are the things that are, I think, emotionally, like, that's actually how I start off every meeting is, how did you feel emotionally this week?
Yeah.
And then the other part of the process, which I love, is called boss the process, which is, taking charge of interviews. And I've always kind of been like that because I've always interviewed. I don't know if I want the job. You sell me on the job. But a lot of people don't think like that or haven't thought like that. So it's bossing the process. But it's something that you also said about James, something that you said that Tom said, that you can't really run a profitable, I'm paraphrasing crazy, without doing it with people. And
And you're talking about Tom Chavez,
Chavez,
previous CEO of Wrapped and Crux, and now at Superset. And
Soup
I
said,
think, a strong voice in the community. And he's very much said you can't start your own business anymore. It takes a team. And I think, we're seeing that through a lot of, everything in life, but especially finding and creating new jobs.
but even after you get the job, sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
but after you get the job, a lot of people stay in their job search councils to continue to help those who don't have a job. And those people who don't have a job still help that person with getting, with the first few weeks of transitioning into a new job. He also has, and again, this is all for free. It's completely volunteer based, but he does have another company, the Never Search Alone guy, Phil, Phyl. Phil.org. He also has a company called Collaborative Gain, and it's leaders helping leaders. So real-time tactical and strategic help from non-competing peers that will help you make, better, faster decisions as an executive. And it's from what I hear, it's pretty amazing. So yeah, once you get your job, it's not really over, right? You want to do your best at the job. You want to do the best for your people. And sometimes you still need help doing that.
Yeah. Ramona, thank you so much for taking the time. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I post with this video your LinkedIn profile. Is there any other sort of social forums that where people should be finding you, or what's the best way to get hold of you? Through LinkedIn?
Yes, LinkedIn for sure. Yes, I have a lot of other tips. I'm more than happy to help anybody out there. It's especially with the Oracle demise, I guess, of many of their different silos of things that were all ad tech. I think there are a lot of talented people out there who are like, what do I do now?
Without doubt, without doubt. And I will hold you to the promise that one day you and I will do a short interview in Spanish together. Once you and I both brushed up a bit on our Spanish, I'd love to get just a few questions in front of everybody.
We'll do this whole interview again in Spanish.
My Spanish is not that good. But thank you so much, Ramona. Good luck with everything, and thank you so much for taking the time today.
My pleasure. Anytime. Thank you so much.